Good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Excellent. Yes. One
Okay.
second. I just want to check my internet connections.
Oh my God, in my house, I put another internet Wi-Fi line in. I couldn't handle it
Yeah.
anymore. David couldn't handle it anymore.
Yeah.
We were all like,
So
Leah couldn't handle it anymore.
you have like a separate line over and above.
This is what I did. I had one upstairs. That was the whole house. And then
Yeah.
I called Bezek. I got the 2 meshes.
Yeah.
Remember, I had my niece in my garage.
Yeah.
And when Ilan is home, and I had this other young man living with us, his name is Benjamin, also like a long, amazing story. I just had so many bodies and everybody's. So then I called Bezek. They're like, get the meshes. I got the meshes. I put them in. Kids are going to be home Zooming. I'm Zooming. You're Zooming.
Yeah.
He's like, for whatever it is, it's 130 shekel a month. We're just like, and the guy's like, listen, you can cancel whenever. So I got a whole other separate line downstairs. It's one Wi-Fi and upstairs. Yeah.
So you know,
it's like, it's saving us right now. And I'll cancel it. I'll cancel it when life returns to normal. But like for now, I just.
You know what? That might be a solution.
Is this a good?
Because I have, so upstairs we had one, and then we put a separate router downstairs in like the living room. So we had like basically 2 separate routers. It was the same line, but it was 2 separate routers.
It's the same line.
But it's the same
I know.
line.
That's the problem.
So now I'm glad I'm talking to you because I'm about to go to maybe the mesh system, but I never even dawned on me to just put in a separate dedicated line.
It's separate. And when they come downstairs, like the upstairs one is our bedroom and the kids' room's upstairs, and downstairs, I actually put it in the mamad, which is Ilan's room. Yeah. But it extends like through the kitchen. Yeah. And then he put like, I guess it's like a mesh, but it extends into my garden. So now in my garden, if somebody wants to Zoom outside in the garden at the table, it's giving us like a little bit more space. The kids in their rooms and me in my room. I'm like I know you can't be outdoors.
No, I mean my garden is my gardens are very shaded, so it's actually very comfortable for me, like this time of year especially, and most of the day to be in my yard, I have to say, because of the way the trees are and everything. I am good, but
Ninoska,
it's so much. First of all, before we get started, this has been so good. I have to include this into our thing. I usually like to chat a little bit first, but I'm including this because I think everyone's gonna like appreciate the heartache of the internet and finding solutions for it.
Well, listen, David has traveled for many, many, many years. So COVID for us, we had a lot of changes. It wasn't just like, kids home, Corona, whatever. This was like a father who is, 24/7 working, all of a sudden doing that from home.
Wow.
And it's so interesting. It's been such a process, an amazing process in so many ways, but also like, oh my God, you're home like all the time.
A complete change. Change. Well, before we go further,
actually this morning, yeah.
So before we go any further, for those people that don't know you and won't know you, I would like you to just introduce yourself and then go on with your story.
Okay. Anything specific or just
who you are?
Okay. Hi, everybody.
Present yourself.
I'm Rachelle Schwartz. Originally from Muncie, New York. Married the guy up the street, married not a high school sweetheart, but the guy up the block.
Love that.
And we have 5 children. We've been living in Israel, Sachakol, all together, 11 years. But we kind of have a story, and we made Aliyah 2 times.
We'll get into that later on too, because we want to hear a little bit about that.
A little bit more about myself. I was a teacher for many, many years, and that's where Ninoska and I kind of know each other from a past life, which is so beautiful and connected on many different levels. As a teacher for many, many years, probably 12, 13 years. And then more recently in Israel, I went on my own journey of rediscovery and became a life coach. And through that, now I'm in the process of finishing like a 3-year parenting counseling course.
Wow.
And which I think is kind of the niche and where I find myself happiest, just because I've always been surrounded with children, and it's something I've always loved, and kind of reinvented myself in this part of my life. So thank God. Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. So I'm gonna break all of that down, and we're gonna go into that. But you were just talking about, we'll get to the point about how COVID has changed your family dynamics and everything. So you said that you grew up in Muncie, so you're originally from the States, and you met the boy down the block. So tell us a little bit about that.
So David and I grew up knowing each other. We were 2 years apart. Some people who know me know I'm very athletic. I'm very into sports. And the two of us grew up playing tennis together for many years. And when I was 16 years old, we were playing on the tennis court with David and his parents, and I was with my father. And on the way home, my dad said something to me like, David Schwartz, he's such a man. She's such a good boy. You know, maybe you should go out with him. And I was like, Daddy, you don't go setting up your teenage daughters, on dates. And at the time he had a girlfriend, and, I was busy. And then we found each other 2 years later. I was in Stern and Dave was in YU. He was pre-med actually, and then became a businessman. And we fell in love like when we were in college, and thank God, Baruch Hashem. And we're going on to 22 years. So
that's beautiful.
Thank God.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I still remember one thing that you told me about your proposal story. Where was it, at Tony and Tina's wedding? I remember that. Is it true?
Yes. How do you remember that?
People don't know.
Yes, it is true.
I remember everything. People don't know this.
Oh my God, Inoska.
Yeah, I do.
That's crazy that you remember that.
I love that story.
Yes, he did. He proposed to me at I actually told him I wanted something very private and low key, and he did the complete opposite. And I mean, you know this a little bit about me, but I'm like a big Broadway fan. And like I love music and musicals, and I play piano, and so he took me to an off-Broadway show and proposed to me there.
Wow, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. I love that. That is so sweet. I mean, you definitely remember that type of proposal. And I love that you just brought in that you played the piano, because you're very musical, you're very athletic, very accomplished, and you're also very musical, but we don't get to see that side of you too often. I don't anyway.
I know.
You have
if Tamar Weiss is watching, who is my neighbor and such a wonderful friend and an inspiring woman.
My non-domestic partner, I call her, because she's like, we refer to each other as
so it happens
a partner.
It happens to be that she tried to grab me for wit. And one of my dreams as a child, I play all the music for, this about me, for Les Miserables, and I know all the music, Belle Paix. And one time she came over to my house and she's like, Rachelle, I'm going to help you get over this stage fright. You have a very pretty voice. I don't know if she's a beautiful voice, but you have a pretty voice. You can carry a tune. And I was like, okay. And she tried with me, but I don't know. I couldn't do it. But maybe one day. I'm not saying no. I'm in a stage of my life of saying yes. And I think when we say yes, we empower ourselves to try new things and bring joy in many different ways. So I'm not saying no.
Maybe one day. Maybe one day.
Maybe.
No, but you know what? And look, music and the art that we do it for ourselves also, not just for the people around us, but it's really for yourself. So, even if you're doing it privately for your family, or just playing music for yourself and enjoying it, that in itself is an absolutely beautiful thing. So that's great. I mean, I just feel like, shame. It's my own personal issue that I don't get to hear it, just because I don't get to hear it. But I would love to one day, hopefully, when even if it's just a private concert,
when the time comes,
to hear you play and sing. So I would love
that for somebody to come into my house and I can give them a concert.
You should. Absolutely. That's like a fun activity. Why not? Well, so
Yeah.
you were very much a part of my Aliyah story, and I don't know if you realize that. Um, when we were thinking about coming, not coming, we were working together. I actually replaced you when you went on your maternity leave
Hmm.
for Orly. No, not Orly.
Yes.
Yeah,
It was
Orly. Okay.
for Orly in
Yeah, it's
Boston.
for Orly. That's right. And then, months later, I gave birth to my Noah. But so we were together at
Mhm.
the preschool, and you were also my second daughter's teacher, and when she was like 3 years old, which is amazing. And full circle come around, you ended up being playing basketball with her on a women's league here in Modi'in, and also with you ended up, we'll get into counseling her as a peer, as a friend. She valued you as a friend, and it's so like mind-blowing that
Mm.
you took care of her when she was 3 years old, and then you guys grew close
My
through.
gosh, Nanoska, I have these memories of her when I first started becoming, friends with her as like an adult.
Yeah.
I would like look at her sometimes and I would say, Ella, I have like flashbacks of you with your hair like out to here, and you're just like this little like jumpy kid who's running around the playground,
Yeah.
and she's just such a wonderful young woman and a beacon of strength, and has overcome so much and has grown so much, and I'm so proud of her. Just like you and your husband are so proud of her.
Yeah.
She's a
Yeah.
special girl.
Right.
But yeah, it's kind of makes me feel very old.
Yeah,
Very old.
but it's just amazing how you were so influential to her as like a 3-year-old. You cared for her, nurtured her, and helped her. And then, I don't know, 15 years later, not, you did the same thing. No, less than that, like maybe 14 years later, you started forming this bond with her, and then you did it all over again on a different level. You helped to nurture her in a different type of relationship. You were her caregiver as a teacher then, adult caring for like a baby, and then you ended up like nurturing her and helping her as like a friend when she needed like a peer, like
Yeah.
a sports buddy and someone to sound off of. So
Yeah.
it's just so beautiful for me as
I
a
know.
friend and parent. I absolutely loved it. But one of the things, you helped me make Aliyah, even though I made Aliyah before you, because you said to me, I was on the fence, and should we go, should we not go? And I was just so worried about it not being successful. And you said, first of all, if I had the opportunity right now, I would go in a heartbeat. And then the second thing you said is, what's the big deal? If you go, you don't like it, move back. And it was like it just exploded in my head. It was like the simplest concept, but it was like, yeah, you know what? What am I nervous about? In that, if we don't like it, we can come back. And that made it a little bit easier for
Yeah.
me. Just those few words. And again, I remember what we were doing. You were in this booth,
Well,
you're taking apart your bulletin board at the end of the year while we were chatting about this. So, yeah. So thank you.
yeah.
Thank you for
I
that.
think, listen, I mean, who knew that was going to foreshadow like my future and my family's journey? But I even say that to people now, like with anything really, meaning you try new things, and if it doesn't work, what's the worst that can happen? You like build up these. I mean, listen, Aliyah is a big deal, and
Yeah.
financially it's a big deal, and I'm not minimizing that. It's something. I think that like Hashem and God puts us in this world to be happy and to be joyful and to serve Him and the Jewish people and ourselves to be happy. And if you have to do that in the place where you feel good and your family. So David and I always said to each other, if one of us or one of our kids weren't happy or it wasn't working, says it like life. No, I just think like sometimes we build things up and then we feel like that we get stuck. And, sometimes you just have to try it and say like, okay, if it didn't work, all will be good, and sometimes it takes a lot of strength to do that and to kind of block out that outside noise that we hear, people saying, oh, you're done, you're going to go back. How can you do that? Or you're going to go and only try it. Like, how could you just and I think when you block out all that outside noise and you kind of like go back to your center and you say, okay, like I need to try this. I need to try for my family. And worst comes to worst.
Wow. Well, you were life coaching even back then, So I want to talk to you a little bit about your Aliyah story, because it's a success as far as you're concerned, everyone's concerned. But like every path, sometimes it isn't straightforward. Sometimes you've turned along the way, and so. Do you feel comfortable talking about your Aliyah?
For sure. I mean, like, just tell me, like, where you want me to start beginning.
Yeah, like the first time when you guys
came. It's a long story.
I mean, first of all, when you like showed up in Modi'in, I was shocked. I was like, what? Huh? You're like, we're here on a pilot trip. And I'm like, no way.
Just so you know, Ninoska, I don't have it with so many people, but there are like maybe 3 or 4 people here in Modi'in that, knew you in your past life, like your pre-Aliyah life. And when you see those people who've known you in a different place and time, there's a comfort that comes with that. So like when we saw you guys and a couple of other people that we knew before that just knew me back then, it's like, I don't know, there's connection, there's familiarity, which is so nice.
Yeah.
So our story is kind of, we grew up in a very Zionistic homes, David and I, and we used to come to Israel all the time. It wasn't like I was dying to move here after we got married. We went to college. We had, thank God, our jobs, and our family was all there. And we also moved around a little bit. That's how we knew each other, from Boston. Yeah. And then we came here for Sukkot, and David was working at a consulting firm at the time. And somebody offered him, if you ever wanted to make Aliyah, now's your chance. We were in Kibbutz HaGushrim. We had 3 kids at the time. Everyone was very little. Ilan was in kindergarten. And he's like, listen, you have 2 days to decide. Let me know. 2 days. So we kind of looked at each other and they said, we'll move you. We'll help you move. When you move these big companies, they take care of a lot of things. And we kind of looked at each other and we were like, okay, like God is giving this to us on a silver platter. How do we not take it? So we went back to Teaneck, packed up our house, and we came mid-year in February. I remember it was February. And we were here for 3 years. I came pregnant with number 4 with my Yonatan. Yeah. And he was born maybe 6 months later, which was stressful and not easy. But, the landing in Modi'in, even then, which was so many years ago, it was pre like this big boom that we had here in Modi'in, and the community was much smaller, but it was the same, warm and kind and helpful. And, we found like ourselves socially very quickly, and we really, really loved it here. But 3 years in, I had this tie to my family, like many of us do. And I just kept saying to David, like, how are we going to raise our kids without their grandparents around, their cousins, my siblings, his parents? There was a piece of me that wasn't fully shalem. And David as well, like he was working crazy hours. And he's like, I think maybe, we should say this was an amazing opportunity and we loved it here and we had a great experience, but maybe it's just time now for us to go, and we'll always love, our 3 years in Modi'in. Yeah. Which was a very tough decision. That was probably one of the hardest decisions we ever had to make. And we went with our gut and we trusted our intuitions. And I think, we were steered well. And we went back to Teaneck, which was great. I made all these wonderful friends and my sister up the street and my parents 20 minutes away. And maybe 3 months in, I looked at David and I just said, okay, we need to go back. I cannot do it here. And he kind of looked at me like, what? Now, after we packed up and moved and settled kids and our jobs and life, and I'm like, sweetheart, I can't raise my kids here. Like, we need to be in Israel a long time. And I definitely had, I mean, many people that live here now, but knew me, we were back in Teaneck together. It was very hard for me to find my place again when we were back in Teaneck. And even myself, like, something changed in me when we made Aliyah. My love of the land, my love of the community, my love of Eretz Israel. It just, I don't know, something really deep inside me changed. And anyway, so he kind of looked at me and he's like, okay, not right now. And I said, okay, I can be patient. And I kind of took it as like, I have some time now for my kids to be with their cousins and their grandparents. And I turned a corner and I said, like, we have a beautiful life here, and I'm going to make it work. But a lot of our Modi'in friends that came to visit, stuck with me, checked in on me, was in touch, and kept that bond strong. And then finally, like 3 years later, I said to David, like, it's time. Kids are getting older. We got to go. It's time. And whatever, thank God things worked out, like, professionally for him, and not simple, like, traveled for many, many years, and difficult for him and the family and the kids. But, this is my home. So we did it again. We packed up. We said goodbye again. I refused to have an Aliyah party. Yeah.
Amazing. But it took almost, that's like common. You realize, you think you're missing something, and you are missing it. And then once you've had a certain perspective, it's never the same. So no matter how challenging it is here in Israel, once you've lived here, and especially if you're in a place that you're happy and you've made good friends, and to then it just stays with you. It just stays with you, like nothing else.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, but for me, that journey was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think I would be living here with such full shleimut. I kind of sometimes feel like I was so lucky, as hard as it was,
that you went back in order to be able to
again
to come forward.
Oh, for sure. I mean, like, that plan in the stars was made for me, and for my kids, and for David too. Meaning, I really had to pull him a little bit. But I think, when we look back on it, we just say, I needed to be there to feel that whatever was missing, and to give me the drive to come back and now live here. I don't I never have any second thoughts. It doesn't matter how hard things become. I mean, you were just an infant, and her father was traveling all the time.
Yeah.
But I never even said, oh, I can't do it. I just knew I had to be here. So I kind of look at it now as a gift, and really lucky.
Wow.
Really lucky. So yeah.
That's
our Aliyah story.
It's very beautiful. It's very unique, and it's very beautiful. And you were very, very, very close with your family. So it was hard for you. And for many people who are in that situation, it's very, very hard. But we've benefited from it. All here, and the people who know you.
Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh.
So now. How did your original background? You were a teacher. I mean, I know that you're very sporty, you're very fit. You do a lot of running, and you still play tennis, and your kids are all like very, very sporty also. They're like little mini Rochelle's,
Yeah.
I love that.
Maybe. Yeah.
A little David too.
A little David too, for sure.
But tell me, how is it that you got onto the path of life coaching? Because for not everyone really fully understands what a life coach does. I mean, myself included, when I first, started hearing about it years and years and years ago, and I'm like, what? Huh? What is that? What does a person do? And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's it doesn't get the recognition and that it really deserves, and the in some areas, and in some people's minds and understanding. And it's an amazing thing, because each life coach is a little bit different in terms of sort of like their approach, I think, and their niche, or what they focus on. And I know so many people who have found it to just be so helpful and uplifting and rewarding. So first of all, I want to know how you got onto this path. How did you decide to follow this path of yours to become a life coach?
So I think, the story that I'm going to say, or my personal story, I think is very common for many, many women that live here in Israel. And I think it's a great conversation. It's kind of why I agreed to do this with you, because I think whoever listens to this, our little schmooze, maybe it'll help them too. And so I think, when we live in America and we've been educated there and our connections are there, and you become successful there and everybody kind of knows you. And everybody knew me as Rachelle. I taught many different age groups through the years, and I was a teacher in a classroom that everybody wanted to come to, and I loved what I did.
Yeah.
And it was a great career, and I'm so happy that I went into education and being able to be around children. And once we moved here and David was traveling very often, I was home trying to get everybody settled. And 1 year goes by, 2 years go by, and that settling feeling, the kids are fine. Meaning we're also nervous in the beginning. And for sure, it is a worry, because it's a new culture, new language, but our children adapt much more quickly than we do.
Yeah.
And, and I knew that from the first time. And I kind of, in my head, I said, okay, you got to recreate yourself, Rachelle. There's something that was missing for me. And I think in the beginning, it started off, I was doing a lot of exercise classes. I started teaching basketball with the Moadon here in Modi'in, because I knew I was athletic. And I said, maybe I can do something like that, just to get me out a little, trying to figure out what's my passion, right? Like this quest of, in your 40s, of, what else can I do? And I started to pay attention to a lot of things that were going on around me. And I was talking to a lot of my friends who were having a lot of similar discussions, like, where do I go from here? And I love being a mother, but I have so many other talents. So I kind of took it as, I found this Jerusalem Coaching Institute, and I decided to apply. And I said, if I'm not doing this as a career, I'm going to do it for myself. I'm going to do it for self-awareness, to become more enlightened, and to learn more about myself, what I like, what I dislike, how can I contribute to the world? And I saw through that process that that I have so much to offer. I have so much to give. I connect with people, and I started to realize a lot of my talents. And I think that there are many, many immigrant women specifically, who are suffering silently, because once they were this, and now here they can't do that, because language is so difficult, culture is so difficult. And I think I watched your conversation with Hani Turk, and that's when I texted you. And I texted Hani as well, who is like one of those amazing, empowering women, and a good friend of mine, and who also, I watched her do it, and I said, she could do it, I could do it. And after my coaching certification, I said, I must do something in Ivrit. I need to improve my Hebrew. I live in the land of Israel. I don't care if people laugh at me. I need to be better. And that's what I did. And it was scary and difficult, but I did it, and I'm almost done.
Wow.
And, I love it. I love what I do. And I'm happy that I've kind of found my niche of, becoming like a parenting coach and a parenting counselor. But I also started doing some work with some chayalot too, and chayalot bodedot specifically, which I really enjoyed. And those girls I learned so much from. I mean, I feel like I just learned from everybody. Every conversation I have and anybody that I've worked with, I feel like I just take away something new from them. So that's kind of a little bit of my story, but I feel like it represents many people's stories. And I encourage everybody to not be afraid to try something new. And it might look scary. And if you don't succeed, you will pick up and move on to the next thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's amazing. In all of these interviews that I've been doing, I've mentioned a couple times to some of the women, some of the common threads that you use that word, and I say to them, the common thread is amongst the women is that they've come to, when we arrive here in Israel, everyone has, after that initial Aliyah adjustment period, you start to then ask yourself, what do I love? What am I passionate about? And the reason that you ask that question is usually because what you touched on, you're not able to work in the field that you were working in before in America because of accreditations or language or whatever the complications may be. And so a lot of women, I feel, have reinvented themselves with a new passion. And the new passion they found, maybe it was something that they sort of enjoyed or loved or thought, maybe I could do this. But then in America, you have that practical side. Oh, I really need to have a real job or a real this, whatever it may be. And you sort of kind of went, when you're younger, you sort of make the practical decisions, whether guided by elders or society or whatever. But then a lot of people come here and then it's sort of it's very free. It's challenging, but at the same time, you had to shed that old, self that you had, and you basically had to then look at yourself closely and say, oh, well, what do I love? What do I enjoy doing? What brings me joy? What brings me pleasure? What makes me smile, and that sort of kind of evolves itself in a lot of women into a new career and a new path that I'm seeing is very, very common.
I also think, I think, and we're both raising, daughters and young women and strong young women, and not just women, all of our children. But I think what I learned so much, I didn't even realize how much my children are watching me. I didn't realize how much they were, cheering me on. And mommy, you got this. Mommy, you can do this. Like just like I was doing for them when we first moved here. Yeah. And I'm like, guys, don't worry. We're going to help you. Tutor. We'll get you a tutor, and you're going to be full. Even now, I just started yesterday my first parenting workshop that I'm doing with Donna Cohen for Chef Fair, actually. And it was very scary because my first time kind of lecturing and on a brand new topic. And it's scary to do those things. And my kids, I mentioned it to them. And of course, David cheered me on, but all my kids that morning, mommy, you got this. I know it's new. Or just that reversal made them so sensitive, and they watched me accomplish something much later in my life. So it had many positives to it. And but yeah, it is very common. And look at you, my gosh, with everything. Look what you're doing now. It's like, it's inspiring. It really is. Like,
you're very sweet. I tend to just, I think, I jump in sometimes and then it's like sink or swim, but it's the kooky side.
Minoska, maybe 5 years ago, I started a flower business because I kind of went on this passion quest trying to figure out, what am I good at? What do I love? I was like, oh, I love decor. I love flowers. I can go to a flower market. I could stay there for hours and hours. And I tried it and it didn't make any money. So I can't say it was a business. David was like, let's call it, David said, call it a hobby.
Hobby.
I'm like, okay, we're gonna call it a hobby.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy that I tried it,
Yeah.
and I know it's something that I love to do.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be my job, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And now somebody else in our Modian community, someone else in our Modian community does that, and like she is fantastic at it.
Yeah.
I'm talking about Sophie Vardy. To give her a plug, and she's amazing and fantastic. And you know, I'm like so happy that I tried that, and I'm so happy that that's someone else's niche.
Exactly.
So yeah.
No, this is my new fun hobby, which, you know, I went back to, and I love talking to people one-on-one. I love hearing their stories. And most importantly, I would always say to anyone, whenever, sort of bringing wit back into this, whenever I would talk to any organization or someone that was asking questions about what we do and who we are, and or a friend who didn't really understand, you know, I said, you know, one of the most important things that I take from WIT is the fact that it's the young women that are there, the young girls and the young women that are participating. They're watching us, and I take it very seriously that I am their role model. And I'm not saying it to pat myself on the back, but, you know, you know, I would say to them, WIT is filled with professional women, lawyers, doctors, full-time moms, and yet these young girls are seeing that we are able to accomplish our dreams, our day-to-day careers, function as wives and mothers, run our homes, and still go out at night and pursue our passions and our dreams. And I said, if I could be the role model for a young, you know, girl growing up, or a young woman, as opposed to like Britney Spears or, you know, Demi Lovato or any of these other ridiculous people, you know, and they're looking at the values that I am representing, that for me was honestly like one of the biggest like bonuses in terms of my, you know, what we do with it and work and running with it. So that ties into what you're saying about your children, because it's not just strangers, it's our own kids as moms, and we forget that. You know, our kids know what.
It's also one of the reasons why I was going to say, it's one of the reasons also why I went back to playing basketball. I remember when I did my coaching, one of the questions that you know, our teacher asked us was, what is something that you no longer do that you used to do that you loved to do?
Yeah.
So for me, I played ball my entire life, you know, through high school, a little bit in college too. And then I stopped for many years, having kids, I was working, we were moving around the world a couple of times. And, and I said, you know, I'm going to try that again. And here in Israel, I had that opportunity.
Yeah.
And I did it while covering my hair, and I coached young girls. And I also, the same thought crossed my mind, like, we can pursue our dreams and we can still, you know, represent, you know, religious women at the same time. And that's when, you know, Ella and I started spending so much time together. I'd pick her up for practice, and she's like, Rachelle, are you coming? I'm like, yeah, after I put my kids to bed and feed them dinner and clean up the kitchen, I will come pick you up. But, you know, for me, there was definitely a thread there of that, that, you know, you can do this if you want to do it.
Exactly. And I think that we have to constantly remember that. That is absolutely amazing. So, and I mean, you've shared so much already. One of my questions, but I think you've already answered it, was, you know, how do you think that your previous work experience has translated into helping you here in Israel in whatever capacity, whether it's patience, understanding, just even some simple skills, you know. So
I'll tell you, you know, like you, when you become an educator, you learn how to listen. And you learn, you know, there's a connection that's made with children, with parents. for me, part of being in the classroom, those connections, now when I look back on it, I didn't realize when I decided to do education, and I also have a degree in psychology, but I didn't realize how perfect fit that was for me.
Yeah.
And I think all my years in a classroom and making connections with children and with parents, and even with, all the extra help that used to come in, whether it's a psychologist or a speech therapist or an OT that used to come to the classroom and help out or shadow that one child may have needed, I was always able to connect. And one of my very good friends, I'll give her a shout out, Jordana Shore, at one of her birthday parties, she was giving all of her friends like a little bracha, and something that she said to me resonated with me. And it still stays with me till this day. And I should probably say this to her, but she'll watch this and she'll see it. But she said something to me. She's like, Rachelle, you're one of the only people I know that you can talk to a 3-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 18-year-old, a 28-year-old, and a 50-year-old, and 60-year-old.
Yeah.
And you can connect with all different age groups.
Yeah.
And after she said that, it really resonated with me.
Yeah.
And it was such a beautiful compliment. And I said, thank you so much. But I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
And
skill.
I think that skill of connection,
Yep.
I've taken into my new role. And I think that's been very helpful.
That's beautiful. So now an easy one. Well, I think it's easy.
Yeah.
What is your favorite hot drink?
Ooh, my favorite hot drink. I mean, I like a really good cappuccino. Like a really good cappuccino.
Nice.
I really enjoy that. I mean, I can have, instant, but I just like, when I really need it, I can just have instant coffee. But that's only later in my life. I've only become a more recent coffee drinker in the last couple of years. So I know. So now I kind of love it.
Love it so much. Okay. What's your favorite room in your house?
Ooh, pre-COVID?
Yeah. It could be before or now.
Favorite room in my house. So I'll be honest with you. I'm really an outdoorsy person.
Yeah.
Like, I love to be outside. I need sunshine. I kind of also learned about like my own mental health, especially through the last couple of months. Yeah. And I see that I love sitting outside at my table, on my porch, or like on my outdoor couch.
Yeah.
And
that's a room. I consider that a room in your house.
Hello. Yeah. In Israel, that's a room.
It's a room.
Every extra space is a room.
Every little space.
So I don't know. For me, I feel like just, being outside. Yeah. This morning I ate breakfast outside, and that's a good spot for me.
Okay. What's the favorite city that you've ever lived in? You've lived in a lot, in a couple of places.
Yeah, we've lived in a bunch of places. Favorite city? I mean, listen, I really loved when we lived in Boston. But I also think that I knew that we were only there for 2 years. So it was just different and fun, and New England, and it was like a very special time in our life, I guess. It was like early on.
Yeah.
And I really liked living in Boston. That was fun.
I think that really Boston is the type of city that is very conducive to it's just easy. It's comfortable. It's I
don't know. We really enjoyed our time there. JP Licks and Harvard Street, and just the train going down.
The trolley to Harvard Street from
oh my gosh,
kids just to go and get an ice cream and trolley back. It's like
David used to take it with Elon, because Elon used to love going on it. He was 18 months old, 2 years old. He used to love going on it. Then they would walk up a stop, and then they would go again because it was free.
Yeah.
And they would get on, go down, walk up, and then get on again. He's like, he loves it and it's free when you only go one stop. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that happening. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
what do you do to stay sane?
To
I
stay sane,
yeah. What's your
stay
like
sane.
that you what do you do to like relieve stress? Like what couldn't you like for me, I don't
Ah,
think I could live without music. During the 3 weeks, I struggle. I struggle.
okay.
I really, really do. It's like, I'm telling you right now, I listen to recorded music and I try very hard during those last 9 days to just remember not to like have my radio on or not to like listen to anything.
Mm.
I have to remind myself, like, I got to do this. And I used to try to go like, the 3 weeks without listening to, it's just not happening. It's not happening.
Hmm.
It's just not happening.
I mean, for me, that's very easy. I cannot go without doing some type of physical activity every day.
Yeah.
And when Corona started and when we were shrinking into like, 200 meters, 100 meters, 50 meters, and, and tennis courts were going to be closed. And that's like, David and I, that's our place. That's where we spend time together. And
Yes.
I don't know, when we started seeing that we were going to have to like run up and down our street
Mhm.
or just like, for me, that my heart started to palpitate. I wasn't going to be able to do a little bit of them. I know I'm so aware of how I feel. And there are days that sometimes you feel a little down. And for me, I've learned what I need. So I know that I need to
Exercise.
be outdoors.
Yeah.
I know that I need exercise.
Mhm.
And I know that I need connection.
Right.
Like those three things, and probably like some good food, yummy. But I know that those things, like initially, if I do them, it'll work.
Yeah.
So I've also actually like now during this time, these last like 8-9 months, I've been trying to like help my kids articulate for them, like what works for them.
Yeah.
Everybody has something different that works for them. So but I've also been trying to like ask them, this is what works for me, guys. What works for you? Is it watching Netflix, or is it jumping on a trampoline? Is it,
Yeah.
But I think for all of us, it's so important to know that the answer to that question. It's a great question. I like it.
I just, I need to,
Yeah.
I recognize that in myself, like, when things are, and I'm like going off the rails or whatever, I stick my headphones in
Yeah.
and I will just listen to music. And
Yeah.
it feeds my soul. It really just does. I
Oh,
really love
that's
it.
great.
Wow. And what if you could go back in time and meet any person and spend a day with them and go as far back as you want to? Who would that be? Who do you think you would go? Who would you want to meet?
Can I ask you who you would want to meet?
So this is the thing, and I say this honestly in every single one of the podcasts, is that I keep asking this question because I haven't thought of any one person that I would want to desperately meet in the past. I can think of the person that I'd like to meet in the future, but I can't think of the person in the past. And I just, there's so many fantastic people, and I don't know, like I always think there's a moment where I love Paco Bell's Canon, and I remember thinking, and I still have this thought like once in a while, but I remember like the first few times that I recognized, like I knew that heard the piece, recognized it, and I said, I can only imagine how the people felt, because they would premiere these things in these like fancy salon with the rich. Like I would have loved to have been sitting in that chair, in that audience, listening to this piece of music played for the first time. I don't know that I want to have a conversation with him.
Wow.
That's some place that I would have loved to have been, to hear that music, like just coming. Yeah, that's it. So, I mean, but I would like to meet the person in the future who makes it to the first planet and colonizes it and is there for a period of time. I'm, just, I'm a nerd. I'm a nerd to the core.
Wow.
I am a big sci-fi nerd to the core. And that's like my thing.
Wow.
Yeah. But going back.
I mean, listen, I mean, by this point, everybody knows I'm like a hardcore Zionist. I made Aliyah 2 times.
Yeah.
I feel very empowered by women.
Yeah.
I think I would like to have a conversation with Golden Ear. I would like to have met her. She's somebody that, like,
yeah,
you know, I read about or I've watched or listened to, and I'm just curious what that was like for a woman at the time to become the prime minister of Israel.
My God.
And responsibility and motherhood. I don't know. I just think it's like, that would be a conversation I'd love to have.
Yeah.
Just love to meet her.
It's very good.
I'm sure there's so many more. I got to think about it.
Yeah, think about it. Well, it'll be something
the first person that would pop into my mind.
And it'll be something that you'll think about, because I think about it like, you know, all the time since I've been asking it. And I think about everyone's answer. I think one person, like, I got the question out and she was like, bam, with the answer. Like,
really?
2 seconds later.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be on the podcast.
I didn't really prepare.
No, there's nothing to prepare. There was nothing to prepare. Like, she didn't prepare. But she's the only person that had the answer ready, that really knew. Everyone else, it was the same thing. Everyone's like, oh, who would I really like to meet? You know, like, it just makes you think for a minute. And that's what I love about the question.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm waiting for someone to give me an answer where I go, oh, that's the person I want to meet. So that's why I asked it also. And then I wanted to ask you, how will you be changed by this COVID-19? You know, everyone knows I'm a little bit of a germaphobe. I like clean. I don't like, you know, I like to clean my hands. I like everything neat. I don't think I'm going to come out of this like, you know, some people are going to, at the other end, they're going to be a little bit more careful and washing their hands. And I'm already there. You know, I think there'll be more people joining my cuckoo tribe. But I don't think that will have changed me in that aspect. I think my change maybe in dealing with people in terms of valuing the interpersonal relationships, of getting to see people on a day-to-day basis. You know, I think as a person, I always like to have gratitude for every day, like, you know, whatever it is. I feel that you need to every day be grateful for something. You know, something that you have or that you've achieved, or just, you know, you have to, I just, that's personally me. That's my thing. Like I say to my kids,
I'm right there with you.
All the time. Just be grateful for what you have and not what you don't have. So this time has given me like intense family time and more relaxed time for me. You know, I'm always like doing this, you know, I love doing things. I have my bucket list that I'm just making because I just love new experiences and doing things. And this has sort of kind of forced me to sort of slow down a little bit. And that's the change. And I hope that during this time, I've sort of hopefully thought of a different way for me to come out of this, in terms of trying to keep some more of that, like having a little bit more, you know, a little bit more downtime for myself. And that's hopefully what I hope I will take from this. But how do you think that you'll change? You know, will your in relationships with your family, your friends, your society, community, what will be different? What will be Rachelle?
I'll tell you this. So I think, you know, my family's process during COVID and these last 8-9 months, I mean, there are 2 parts of it, meaning, you know, we don't have any family here in Israel. So this idea, and, you know, like I said before, I love it here, but we have not seen our families for over a year.
Yeah.
The last time my parents were here were a year ago this past Shabbat.
Yeah. Wow.
And my husband's parents, so we're already like a year plus. So, and cousins, and I kind of like, we wait for those visits to enrich our kids' relationships and my relationships with my parents, with my siblings, with some old friends that we still have in America that I cherish deeply. And I think, not that I take it for granted that we get to see them often in the last couple of years, but that is something that I'm still not at peace with. I'm still struggling with, like, should I go? Should I stay? God forbid if I brought something. Like, it's constantly in my head, because to me, like, family is everything.
Yeah.
That has been difficult, but I think what will change afterwards, just from that piece, is that I'm going to make sure that those relationships are going to be nourished as much as we possibly can. Up until now, it's hard for kids to get away, and everybody's getting older, and now I have this and you have this, but we have to really make that time happen, and not to sweat the small stuff. And, sometimes you just have to go, whether it's a good time or a bad time, or so that's one thing. And then just like with our life here, just with my family, and I feel like many families have been like this, but the beginning of Corona was movie night, and this is not so bad. We kind of like being at home.
Yeah.
We kind of like being all together, and thank God my kids get along, and we have so much fun. We had color war, we painted, we spray painted, we had so many activities, and game nights and all that stuff. It really is amazing. And I think, like, now where we are, as I'm telling my kids, we're no longer waiting to see when this is going to end. We are living with COVID, right? We are like living with it. And what that means is that in between these waves, unfortunately, until we have our vaccine, we need to live. Yeah. Because when we have to close up again, we know we're going to be okay, because as a family, we're very strong. But I'm trying to show them to be with their friends. And I think for me, like I said before, I'm such a person that needs interpersonal relationships and connections. Right? Just not even seeing, Leah hasn't been in your gun in many years, but even just those morning drop-offs of like saying hello and how are you and what's going on, or bumping into somebody at Aroma, or it's just, I'm going to cherish those moments so much more, because I think like we all miss that. And I haven't seen people for months, so I just think like I will be much more aware of who I meet during the day, and what my conversations are going to be. And so nice to see you, and I'm seeing you face to face, so I think I'm just going to pay attention more.
And I think that on that
makes
one,
sense.
And going on that line, I'm gonna try to make sure that I carve out more time, so that I can see people more. So that I can have a little bit more of just the fun social time, of just like hanging out, meeting for a coffee, doing this, doing that a little bit more frequently. Because again, I felt like didn't do that enough. I saw the people that I saw through work, and if I didn't get to see them there, I wanted to, but then you just get so busy with life and everything else that you're doing. And this has taught me, you know what? You got to carve out that time, because you never know when you're going to be stuck in the house for like 8 months.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
Did you ever imagine in your life that this would be happening?
It's crazy to think about. It really is. It's just crazy.
It's just not normal. All right. And your favorite, last thing I want to ask you is what your favorite, a favorite. So it could be something that you have read recently, book, or something that you just keep going back and revisiting and reading again and again.
Ah,
Enjoy.
okay. So I'm a big fan of Viktor Frankl,
Okay.
and I've read his book many times, but most recently I read The Choice. I don't know if anyone's ever mentioned that. Dr. Edith Edgar.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Oh, you must read it, Inoska. It's an amazing book. And she talks about, she's a Holocaust survivor and a psychologist, and she talks about her story of how she survived the Holocaust and how she chose how she referred to her experience and how she came out of it. And it is a fantastic book. She just came out with her second book. But it's one of those books that kind of changed my life. And I recently read it again. I mean, maybe she came, I forgot when she wrote it, maybe 3-4 years ago. And she just came out with her second book. But the other thing that I have that I keep rereading is that this past year for my birthday, my kids made me a jar, and they each wrote, I mean, I don't know how many each of them wrote, but it was 365 little pieces of paper. And every day I take one out, and they're all different, like motivational phrases, or mommy, you rocked it today, or you make me the best dinners, but it was the best birthday gift. So what I'm supposed to do is take one out every day.
Yeah.
Until the jar is empty by my next birthday.
Wow.
But I don't want it to be empty. So I keep putting them back in. I keep taking them out because I just love it. And it's like, and actually a couple asked me like, oh, what should I do? So I show them my jar, and I'm like, my kids made this for me for my birthday, and it is the best present ever.
Oh, that is.
So I know somebody that made two for like 2 years. She has like two jars. I'll show it to you afterwards.
Oh, it's actually a genius idea. Send me a
sometimes I let, like, when Leah, I'll send you a picture, and when, like, in the morning when I want, like, Leah to get dressed for a gun or whatever, and I'll be like, I'll let you take out the paper from the jar. And she gets like so excited, and then she pulls it out, and then I read it, and it's and even David wrote for me, and it was really cute.
Wow.
So I love reading that. That is like a gift that keeps on giving.
Wow.
And yeah, it's really special. I love it.
That's actually a lovely, lovely idea. I'm gonna have to borrow that. Yeah.
And, oh my gosh.
And do it.
And you know what? For me, it was like my kids, like they finally figured out their mommy. Wow. Like, oh my God, my mom is gonna love this. And I'm like, wow, guys, you got it on the button. So that's something I read all the time, and I love it. I'll show it to you. You're gonna love it.
It's so beautiful. It really is.
It really is. Yeah.
Well, tell them well done.
That is well done.
It's the first time I'm hearing of that. Like, I've never heard that before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I actually think they found it on Pinterest.
Maybe, not for sure. It sounds like something that would be like going on, but I promise you, this is the first time I've heard of that. Like,
and some of the things that they write, like, hilarious. Like, I'll know which kid it's coming from, exactly which child it is. I mean, not just from their handwriting, but I know which one my 19-year-old wrote, and I know which one my 12-year-old wrote. And it's great.
Oh, that's so sweet. Yeah. That's amazing. Well, dear, I want to thank you very, very much for doing this. And I think that you're an amazing, inspiring person. And I think that, someone's going to love hearing, your path, your story, and hopefully become empowered and inspired and, motivated to go forward with something else, or just, I think, you brought a smile to my face, and I'm sure that you'll bring to people.
By the way, I wanted to tell you, your makeup looks great.
Oh, thank you. Well, I don't wear foundation, so it's like no foundation, but I put on, I do moisturizer, like a slightly tinted moisturizer. So it's not foundation.
Okay.
Clear, but I did like my
because now that I'm starting to do classes like on Zoom, I'm like, maybe I need special makeup for Zoom, but you look beautiful.
Well, thank you. You're very sweet. So it's like eyeliner, a little like natural shading, sparkly, shadowy type thing that are natural tones.
Oh, look at you.
and a little bit of blush, because that's one thing you do need on there, like, you know, to do that. And of course, I have
Yeah,
to,
I see.
I have to wear lipstick. I have to wear lipstick. It's like,
I
it's like,
know.
it's like oxygen for me. It's oxygen, but you don't need to. You have like gorgeous lips. Like you just need a little lip gloss. That's it. Put a little lip gloss
No,
on. That's it.
it's a
But
little bit of lip gloss, but still, like I put on lipstick the other day, and then I put on my mask,
yeah.
and
Oh,
someone put on lipstick. My lipstick is looking at me from my makeup bag,
uh-huh.
and
Yep.
it's like, yeah, my MAC lipstick. It's sitting there, and it's like, why aren't you wearing me?
Oh. So I wear the color stay one, so it doesn't rub off at all. So
Oh, it
yeah,
looks so pretty.
yeah, so I can still wear it. I put it on in the morning under my mask, under anyway with the mask. But that's the thing. I just yeah. I personally do not like putting on blush.
Yeah.
Or putting on eyeshadow. I wear mascara and a little eyeliner, but just because I don't like the feeling of it on my face for some reason, even though it's
Really?
not very heavy, like it's a psychological thing. I only would, you know, make like put it on for like the stage and stuff, and I just always want to, because I'm always touching like my face, and I feel like I'm gonna smudge something.
I know. But you look beautiful as usual.
Thank you. You do too.
So good to
You always
see you.
are. You always, you're
I wouldn't
stunning.
do this for anybody. I was only going to do this for you because I have such a warm place for you.
Thank you.
First of all, we didn't even talk about how you were like my kids, like teacher and nurturer also for so many years.
Love those kids. Love those kids.
And I mean, everybody knows that you are just spectacular and inspiring and just a wonderful person with wonderful kids. So I wish you had hatzlacha with this, whatever you're doing.
So much.
And
I'm just, you know, I'm just enjoying this, and like, you know, this is like something, a bucket list thing again that I wanted to do for so long.
Great.
And it's
really good.
It's a
really good for you.
My connection, making connections to people, because you don't get to spend enough time with them in a group setting, and this is a one-on-one, and get to,
great.
You know, a connection and learn a little bit more about one another. So anyway,
all right,
thank you. Give big hugs and kisses to everyone. To you.
I will.
And
mine to yours.
Send regards to everyone. Send regards to David, and I know he's probably working hard at home. And
yes, yeah. But he's good. Thank God, we're all good. We're all healthy. We're gonna get through this, and that's it. Thank God we still have beautiful weather, because that's what I need. I need to be able to go outside.
I'm telling you. And hopefully the vaccines will be on the market. I'm praying for like the next 6 months.
I hope so. I know we have bar mitzvahs.
I know. End of the year, right? I mean, no, mine is in
the end of the year.
August.
We're also August.
Yeah.
What's your date?
What did Kita say, right? You're like,
you're Kitetse, we're Kitavo.
Yeah, you're right after or before?
We're right after you.
Yeah.
We're right after you.
Yeah.
It goes Kitetse, Kitavo. Oh my gosh, we're a week apart?
Yeah. It's crazy.
Oh, you should just know that you're Eitan. So he's gonna start like fixing bike business, because he comes over, he's fixing bikes.
Apparently. That boy.
Apparently.
First of all, he's not only doing that, he's riding. He has a YouTube channel where he films himself like riding bikes. He has like more subscribers than I do, more views than I have. And he's like beat me like in 1 week. And so he's having.
Well, I think he was giving Yo-Yo some tips. So now Yo-Yo's been at the Sport Tech like every night, thanks to Eitan Rabbi.
Yeah, Eitan's been riding, like that's what he does, because that's the only thing that he could do in terms of like exercise and going someplace. And
I know.
Yeah, he's been doing that, and he's also been refurbishing bikes and selling them. So he's been buying bikes.
Good for him.
Like,
wow, I have a couple of bikes. Send them over. I have a couple of bikes.
I will tell him. So he buys like bikes and he works on them. He fixes them up, and then he resells them to people. You know, that's his thing. He's having a lot of fun with
That's
it.
awesome.
I'm very happy for him that he's
Good. I'm glad.
enjoying the biking and he's doing that. But yeah, it's going to be a
That's
crazy
great.
year. So I'm praying that, you know, by then, even if we get to
I
a
know.
slightly better place, you know, so that these, you know, my boy can have like
Yeah.
a bar mitzvah.
I know. Oh my God, it's your only boy.
My only boy,
Yeah.
bar mitzvah, exactly. So that's why I like
Yes,
selfishly, I'm like, oh, please.
Yeah.
So we can have that at least anyway.
Yeah, I know. Listen,
But
I know. All right, Nanoska.
All right,
Laila
dear.
Tov.
Have a great
Thank you so
night.
much. This was so
And
much fun.
I will probably
Bye.
see you soon. Please, I hope. I pray.
Yeah.
We'll see each other soon.
I hope so
Okay.
too.
Good night.
Bye.
Since you've reached the end of this video, do the right thing. Press the subscribe button. That's the word subscribe in bright red letters.